Hi, hello, welcome to or back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing a really exciting video. We're going to be going through the 23 books I loved in 2023. I am currently filming this on the 14th of December, so there might be a possibility that I could read another book that could take the spot of one of these books on this list, but I highly doubt it. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let's get into it. My background is just calendars. If you know me, if you've watched my channel, you probably know what the first spot is going to be on this list. This is going to be in order as well, by the way. And don't trust me on my order though, because you could ask me another day and this could completely change. But the number one spot would never change. This is always going to be my favourite series that I've read this year. And that is none other than the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. These books made me so happy. Like, I love them so much. They have two of my favourite characters I have ever read, Evangeline Fox and Jax. Writing in these books is so magical, whimsical. I love the world these books are built in. I have never wanted to live in a world more than when I read these books. Like, the world is just so freaking good. I adore these books with everything in me, and I just think they're perfect. But the book that's going to be taking the spot as the number one in the series, because I'm not going to do every single book in the series, even if they're all 5 stars, because that would take up too much space in the list. Number one is going to be The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber, which is the second book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. This one, just don't get me wrong, I fell in love with Evangeline and Jax in Once Upon a Broken Heart, but this one really solidified that. The plotline in this was crazy, the twists were crazy. I loved the Evangeline and Jax were such a big presence in this one, like they were in the first one, but I don't know, in this one you really saw these two characters come together, and you also got to learn more about their backgrounds, and I just love the plot in this one so much. So this one is definitely my favourite. This one really breaks your heart as well. Like, the love story in this one just shatters your heart to pieces, honestly. Like, Stephanie Garber is the queen of writing romance that just breaks your heart. Number two is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. This book was the first book to, like, fully make me cry. Like, I've got teary-eyed books before, but this one, I don't know, like, after I'd finished it, I felt so, I don't know, I felt so empty. I felt like I don't know how to explain it. I just felt so empty. And I literally, when my boyfriend got home not long after I finished this book, and I literally started crying, because I was talking to him about it, and I started crying because I just felt so attached to these characters. And if you know this book, you know how heartbreaking it is. And the way Laura Nolan wrote this, some people don't agree with this, but I think the way she wrote it is the reason why it breaks your heart so much, because she lets you know at the start what's going to happen at the end. She tells you, she gives you a warning. She's like, this is what's going to happen, but she then makes you fall in love with these two characters, and you completely forget about the start of the book, and then it comes and just hits you like a ton of bricks. These characters have my heart, and some people don't like this book because it's YA and they find Autumn a bit cringy, but I loved the characters in this so much. Honestly, you're just following along their story, and yeah, not much happens in it, but I don't know, it's just one of my favourite books that I've ever read, and I will cherish this book with everything in me, and I will stand by it, because I freaking loved it, and I cannot wait for the second one to come out. In Finny's point of view, I know that's gonna literally have me in tears. I am not prepared. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. It's actually criminal that this is the only Ali Hazelwood book I've read this year, like, even though I own all the books. Because this is one of my all-time favourite books. This is a book that made me fall in love with reading. This book is the reason why I have this channel. I am just in love with this book. I love it so much. I loved the banter, I loved how funny it was, I loved the fake dating, the tropes, everything about it was just so good for me. I literally remember, like, you know the book's good when you remember where you are, what time it was, when you were reading it, because I was literally sat on the end of my bed and I was reading it. My boyfriend walked in and he was just like, what are you giggling at? And I'm like, I'm giggling at this because it's so freaking good. Like, oh, I loved Olive and Adam so much. Like, one of my favourite couples ever, and I really need to reread this book. I want to read some of Anna Hazelwood's other books first, but I just know this is gonna be a 5-star forever. Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. Oh, this book. I loved it so much. Like, Wes and Liz are literally the cutest couple ever. This book literally felt like a movie. Like, Lynn Painter is, I've said this in so many videos, but this is how I'm gonna sell her books to you, because you need to read them. Her books are literally a movie. Like, you're reading it and you feel like you're sat in front of a TV watching a movie, because that is how good her books are. Like, the way she writes, it is just perfect. And this is literally called Better Than the Movies. And throughout the book, there is quotes at the start of each chapter with a romance movie, with a quote from a romance movie. I think about this book all the time. I think about the scenes in it all the time. Like, I found this really perfect, and I just thought it was the cutest thing ever. Next one is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. My favourite one in the series is Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. This series is so thrilling. This one's my favourite because there's a big podcast element in it, which I really enjoyed. And even though I loved A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, because I'd already read about Pip, read about her story, I felt so much more connected to her in this one. They're both 5 stars, but I don't know, this one is definitely my favourite. I much preferred the plot in this one. I found it more exciting. When I first read these two though, I literally couldn't decide, but I think it is this one that's my favourite. And if you haven't, I'm sure you have, because it's one of the most popular series, but if you haven't read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, please read it, because Pip is one of my all-time favourite characters. These books are really fun. Dark, but fun. They're not too dark though, which is why I loved them so much as well, because they are YA, but I still feel like even though they were YA, they still had so much depth to them, and there was still really thrilling. Like, you felt so scared for Pip throughout all these books, and I just think Holly Jackson is one of my favourite authors. The Heartstopper series. Okay, let me get my favourite one. They're all falling everywhere. I don't want to damage these books. These are some of my favourite books ever. My favourite one in the series is Volume 4. But this series is one of the most wholesome things I have ever had the pleasure of reading. I had already watched the Heartstopper series before reading these, and these books just made me fall more in love with Nick and Charlie. They have my whole entire heart. They are one of my all-time favourite couples. I just think the way Alice Oseman created this series, it is so important and sheds light on so many topics that need to be shown more. I think it's such a good series, especially for teenagers who are struggling with their sexuality, and Alice Oseman just really represents so much in these books, and I just think they are some of the most beautiful things in the world, and I think they're going to be great for people who are struggling with sexuality. There is stuff in this series that I absolutely relate to. I just felt so seen with Charlie's character, because he has an eating disorder, he struggles with body dysmorphia, and I struggle with that too, and reading his character and reading his feelings really made me feel seen, and I just felt so connected to his character. The relationship between these two is one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. So if I haven't just sold you on this series, then you need to read it. Like, come on, it's Nick and Charlie, you have to read it. Number 7 is none other than Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I literally was freaking out while reading this book. Like, I don't think I've ever freaked out as much as I did with this book. Now, surprisingly, I thought this was going to be number 2 on the list, but once I went through, like, the books that I've read this year, this is number 7, but it is still one of my all-time favourites. It's in my top 10 of this year. I freaking loved it. Like, this was phenomenal, and this was the first proper fantasy that I read. Like, obviously I've read Once Upon a Broken Heart, but that's more fairy tale-esque, whereas this is very high stakes. Even though it is politics and things like that, it was really easy to read, which I was worried that it wasn't going to be. So where Rebecca Yarros wrote the politics as well, it wasn't too much. I just loved the way Rebecca Yarros told this story. Like, you just jump straight into the plot. There's no setting, there's no like building up the world, you just get thrown into the world, which I love that. I feel like when you do get thrown into the world, you actually take it in more. I feel like that's how I'm gonna be anyway. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. You literally get thrown straight into it. The stakes are already high when you jump straight into the story. Like, you're already worried for Violet's character. And the enemies to lovers in this, Zayden. Oh my god, obsessed, literally obsessed. Like, all I'll say is the smut scenes, I was going crazy. I was like, oh my god. But yeah, I loved it so much, if you can't tell. Number 8 is When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This made me fall in love with the grumpy sunshine trope. This is the reason why I love that trope so much. I adored this book so much. I loved the small town, another trope that I fell in love with because of this book. This book made me realise so many of my favourite tropes, and I just thought that the dynamic between these two was amazing, because she's a pop star going to this small town, he's a grump, there's forced proximity, like there's so many good tropes, and it was freaking perfect. Like, 6-star read for me. There was so many side characters in it, and they actually stood out to me. Like, it wasn't just the relationship, which, don't get me wrong, I loved the relationship a lot, they were the main part for me, but the small town and the way everyone brought Amelia in made her feel so welcome, and that was just so sweet. And also his family as well, all his sisters were so good to her. Like, this book was really sweet. The Inheritance Games series, I did a whole video on these. My favourite in the series, which I feel like this is the one that's hated on the most, but I freaking loved it. The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the third one in the series, my favourite. I loved the first one as well, but this one I was obsessed. I think because I'd already read 2 books for all these characters, in this one I was so connected to them that this one just hit different, and I was obsessed. It was so good, and I loved the plot in this one as well, the twists and everything. You need to read these books because they are so freaking good. Like, the mysteries, and you're just following along with Avery trying to figure out these mysteries and quizzes. Such a fun time. Something a little bit different, but was really beautiful. I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I just thought it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. It broke my heart. Like, honestly, it really did break my freaking heart to know all the things that Jeanette McCurdy had to go through with her mum. The way she wrote this, I just thought it was one of the most beautiful things I have ever read. I've said the word so many times, but it is so beautiful and sad and heartbreaking, and there's a lot of triggering topics in this book, so check the trigger warning. Someone that grew up with Sam and Cat and grew up with Victorious and iCarly, all them shows, this just really broke my heart to know what was happening behind the scenes of some of my favourite shows as a kid. Like, you really just don't know what these people are going through. This just really shows that. The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is a book that I guarantee every single day or every other day, a scene in this pops into my brain. Something about it just has my freaking heart. Like, I loved this so much, and I think it was the Disney park elements in it that really made me love it. And also I loved Zara's character, and I love how she put Rowan in his place. I originally gave it a 4.5, but on reflection I kept thinking about it, so I had to give it a 5-star. Zara and Rowan were just perfect to me, and also what Rowan does for Zara at the end, the sweetest thing ever. And Rowan and Zara's sister in this book, he literally like had me swooning. My heart was melting. Like, oh my god, so sweet. Flawless by Elsie Silver. Super criminal that this is the only one I've read in Chestnut Springs. And when did I read this? I read this in June, and I still haven't read the other books in the series. I own the books, not all of them, but I own the next 2 in the series. What am I doing when this book was a 5-star? I don't understand my brain sometimes. Like, it took me ages to read the second book in the Fine Print series, even though the first one was 5-star. Like, I think I get scared that I'm not going to love the rest of the books and just put them off. So in the new year, I'm definitely going to be reading the rest of the Chestnut Springs series, because this book was so cute. Like, I feel like I'm saying the same words in this video. I'm really sorry, but I was not expecting to love a cowboy romance, but Rhett Eaton Eaton and Summer. I loved, again, another one that has such a good dynamic because she is the daughter of his agent. Like, the tropes, so good. A little bit forbidden, like, oh, this was perfect. Loved it so much. Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is one that, like, it was 5 stars and I feel like it could be a 6-star read, but after finishing it I just can't really remember much about the book. And I don't know why, because I remember my feelings with the book. I remember how much I loved it, but I just don't remember the things that happened inside the book, which I don't know why, and that's really confusing me. So I do want to reread this book. I do remember how beautiful the story was between the two main characters and how sweet the romance was. I remember, well, I say I don't remember it, but I remember like certain parts, like them two writing the stories and then like them sitting out on the porch and talking to each other, things like that I remember. But I just wish I remembered more about this book, because I know that it is such a good book. I don't know, I feel like my memory can be really bad sometimes, and it's nothing on the book. Like, this book was so good and it made me feel so many emotions. I think I literally got teary-eyed while reading this book, so it's nothing on the book, I don't know. So yeah, this is one that I am going to try and prioritise rereading in the summertime, because I feel like this could become one of my absolute favourites. I just need to reread it at a better time, but it's still so good and one of my 5-star reads. The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. So many people rate this low and I'm like, why? Because this is a 5-star read for me. It had me literally laughing out loud. Like, I loved this so much. I thought it was such a good rom-com. Yes, it's a bit cringy, but I don't mind cringy romances. As long as it's not too cringy, I can vibe with it. And I feel like there were so many scenes in this book that just made up for such humour. Like, the humour in this was absolutely hilarious. And yes, the way Ethan treats her in some parts of this book are a little bit questionable, but I feel like he did redeem his character in this book. I actually preferred this to Love and Other Words. I gave Love and Other Words 3.75 and I gave this 5 stars, so do with that what you will. Maybe I have crap reading taste, I don't know, because so many people love the book Love and Other Words. I liked it, but I wasn't the biggest fan, whereas this one is one of my favourite reads. The setting in this as well, like the tropes and the setting, just made up for such a fun time. So yeah, just don't take it too seriously when you're reading it and you'll love it. None of This Is True by Lisa Joel. My reactions to this book, my jaw was literally on the floor at the ending. And even though this has a, is it called an ambiguous ending? I think it is, where like you still have questions. Usually I'm not a big fan of endings like that. I like my books to be wrapped up in a little bow, but this book, I loved the ending and I feel like it made up for such a good ending, and the way the story was told, that ending just made so much sense to the story. Yes, you left wondering like so many things, but I think that's what makes the book so great. Because of the ending, you can't stop thinking about it. And also the podcast element in this was so good. The complex female friendship was incredible. You felt such an eerie, dark feeling while you were reading this. You're just questioning so much while reading this. The main characters were so interesting to read about. And Alex bringing in this woman into her life just completely switching around. It was so scary. So not scary, but it was really thrilling. Spy Survived by Holly Jackson. This again gets so much bad rep and I think it was so good. I read this like kind of at the start of my reading journey, but I can't remember when I read it. I think it was like March time, I'm pretty sure. I love that it's just in one setting. It's in this one RV. They're in this one RV. It's a group of friends. You don't know who to trust, who to believe. You're following a character that you don't fully know if you can trust. She's a little bit suspicious, so yeah, you question a lot while reading this. I just love a claustrophobic setting. It makes you feel so scared for the characters. So yeah, and I just love Holly Jackson so much. She is probably, I think Stephanie Garber, then Holly Jackson are like my 2 favourite authors. I love them both so freaking much. So, and 2 very different authors as well. I love how it's like spanned across 8 hours. I just think this was a great thriller. The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, another Lynn Painter book, because I just love her so much. This book is really short and I read it in one sitting. think I read it in like 6 to 7 hours. It's such an easy read, super cute, love the plot line, like the Hogwarts Hogwarts? What am I on about? The groundhog trope where she's having to repeat a day over and over again. I didn't think, like, I thought I wouldn't connect to the relationship because of that, but I actually loved the relationship in this so much. And I just loved how every day they built a connection, like, stronger and stronger, even though he doesn't remember the things that she remembers. And the ending as well, like the birthday cake scene. So cute. Like, yeah, this was a very sweet book. If you're gonna read this book, read it during Valentine's Day because it is set on Valentine's Day. Hooked by Emily McIntyre. Again, why haven't I continued the series? I don't know, because I love this one so much. This was the first like proper dark romance I read, and I loved it. It was so addictive. A little bit far-fetched, but I loved that, and I loved the Peter Pan elements to it. I absolutely love this book. I love a dark romance. This cover, I'm obsessed with it so much. Like, oh, one of my favourite covers. James in this book was so interesting to follow. I loved his point of view so much. So yeah, and I loved the plot in this. It was so addictive. The twist in this was so heartbreaking as well, and the journey this book touched on was really good. Number 19, a book I could talk about forever. Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. Still need to read Keeping 13. This feels like a brick when I'm holding it. It's so like, not much happens in this book, like at all, but I couldn't put it down. I think I read it in like 2 or 3 days, which, or it could have been 4 days. Anyway, I read it really quickly for a nearly 900 page book, I'm pretty sure. No, nearly 800 page book. Like, could not put it down. And I don't know why, because, well, I do know why. I felt so connected to the 2 main characters in this. 800 pages of literally no plot, just following these 2 characters. And I loved it, but I think I do love that if I connect to the characters, because like, if you've been with me, even though it wasn't a long book, it was also a book that didn't have much plot, but I was so connected to the characters that I loved it, and that was the same with this book. I think I just love a heartbreaking story, and this is a very heartbreaking story. You need to check the trigger warnings with it. And I also loved how Jolly took care of Shannon. Like, it made my heart shatter. I loved following Shannon, like seeing her come out of her shell around Jolly, and her finally having someone in her corner. Number 20, The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. Why this book gets so much hate, I don't know. Yes, it's chaotic, yes, it's crazy, yes, it's far-fetched, but that is what makes it so great, because this book is one of the most twistiest books I have ever read. Like, so many twists, which would take you on a whole journey. Another one with complex female friendships, which I love. I was genuinely scared while reading this, especially towards the end. Another claustrophobic element in this book that literally has you like this. Oh, like, you're so scared. You literally feel claustrophobic while reading this book. You just want to get to the end to make sure that the people are going to be okay. Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. Another book that's thick, but I read it really quickly. The plot in this book and the characters make you just addicted, obsessed, could not put this book down. Every time I put this book down, I could not stop thinking about it. I just wanted to pick it back up, and even though some of the scenes are not things I want to be reading about, I just wanted to read it because I wanted to make sure that Adeline was okay. I question myself for loving this so much because it's a stalker romance, but I loved it. I don't know, I don't know why, well, I do know why I loved it so much, because it was just, I was so obsessed with it. But I question myself for that. Oh, H.D. Carlton's writing is so addictive. I think with this book as well, because it's so plot heavy. Like, there's so much going on in this book that you can't put it down. I loved how dark it was. I love dark romances, so please recommend me some dark romances, because this is very dark. Like, you need to check trigger warnings for this, because there's a lot of dark topics in this book. Would I enjoy Zayd's character in real life? Absolutely not, but in this book, I loved it. I loved his point of view, loved reading about him, loved his character. As a character, not as a real person, as a character he was interesting to follow. My Roommate's a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This was the perfect rom-com. Another book that I actually can't stop thinking about. Such a cute rom-com. This is another book that people take far too seriously. It's literally about a vampire and a human girl. It's not going to be serious, is it? Like, come on. Just enjoy it for what it is. And this was so funny. Like, the dynamic between these two. She's teaching him about the modern world and he's like a century-old vampire. Made up for so much humour and funny scenes. Literally another book that had me laughing out loud. And I loved these two as a couple. I thought they were really sweet. I loved Frederick as well because he was literally so good at acts of service as a love language. He was so good to Cassie as a character. Like, I had me swooning. Didn't think I'd be swooning for a vampire, but Frederick had me swooning. It was so cute. The Last Word by Taylor Adams. This is the first thriller where I truly felt terrified. Like, I was scared while reading this book. Literally scared that I didn't want to turn my light off on a night because I was terrified, especially because it's set in a house. So scary. Claustrophobic thrillers are definitely some of my favourite thrillers because this is another one that's claustrophobic. She's stuck in this little house. There's an author who's after her. I love this book because it was a book about books, a thriller about books. It's about an author who is threatening this girl because she left a 1-star review, which that just made up for so many good twists. If you see here a different font to the rest of the book, these are excerpts from a book that the author is writing about the girl that's stuck in the house. And there's like 2 point of views going on in this book that are completely different, and when it all comes together at the end, it is so twisty, so dark, so scary. And we're done. That was a lot of talking. I love talking about my favourite books. This was such a fun video. Sorry if I was like talking fast. I get a bit too excited sometimes and talk really fast. I can't help it, but hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Let me know some of your favourite books in the comments. I would love to know and maybe I'll read them. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Give it a big thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!